So the familiar contours of a legal contest and a judicial ruling playing out once again in the politics of Kano State as the appeals court upholds the verdict of the Election Petitions Tribunal sacking the NNPP governor of the state, Abba Yusuf. The court unanimously declared the APC candidate, Nasiru Gawuna, as the authentic winner of the election in March. INEC had announced Governor Yusuf as the victor. Well, the APC and its candidate, Nasiru Gawuna, petitioned, and the tribunal agreed that there was substantial evidence of irregularities and corrupt practices, resulting in the cancellation of more than 160,000 ballot papers on the grounds that they were not signed or stamped by INEC. So potentially a new scale, a new intensity, and possibly a new shape to the politics of Kano State, although the NNPP will almost certainly appeal to the Supreme Court. Well, in a moment, I'll be joined for analysis by the policy strategist and political commentator Baba Yusuf, who is from Kano State. But first, let's cross live to Kaduna and speak to Nisi Gabriel, who is the Arise correspondent that covers Nigeria's northwest region. Good to see you, Nisi. And I imagine the mood in Kano and Kaduna where you are, I understand there are a lot of NNPP supporters in Kaduna, is fairly downcast at the moment. What are you hearing from them in terms of their reaction to that appeals court ruling effectively sacking their man?
Good to speak to you, Charles, once again. Clearly, like you rightly said, Kano State has been thrown into political turmoil at the moment by today's appeals court verdict. And like you rightly said, supporters of the APC are celebrating, while supporters of the New Nigeria People's Party, that's the NNPP, are not in a jubilant mood at the moment. The feelers I'm getting from Kano State suggest a peaceful atmosphere, but here in Kaduna, like you rightly said, supporters of the NNPP are so downcast, they are not happy and they are not in a jubilant mood. But in Kano State, we do understand that the atmosphere there is calm, perhaps because the key political actors are not in the state at the moment to mobilize enough supporters. We do understand that Governor Abba Yusuf, who has been sacked by the appeals court today, is currently in Abidjan, along with other Northwest governors attending a meeting with the African Development Bank. And on the other hand, Nasiru Gawuna of the APC is in Abuja alongside his supporters. So the mood generally across the region is one of mixed feelings, clearly, and many people are really not happy with the verdicts. Of course, you know what happened in Zamfara and now Kano State. So mixed reaction here and there, Charles.
Well, thank you for setting that out, Nisi. So, I mean, is it your sense that it is all over, or are Governor Yusuf and the NNPP likely to go all the way to the Supreme Court?
Yes, that's a good question, Charles. Earlier today, I spoke with one of the party stalwarts of the New Nigerian People's Party, that's the NNPP, and he vehemently told me that they will be approaching the apex court, that's the Supreme Court. But many political analysts here in this region fear that if the appeals court told the line of the, if the apex court, that's the Supreme Court, toes the line of the appeals court, then Kano State might just be one of those states that we will see experience off-cycle elections in the country. And to many, it doesn't really sit well because of the voting strength Kano State potential in this country. So it's many of the supporters here are downcast, but for the NNPP, they certainly will move to the apex court, that's the Supreme Court, just to explore all legal means to ensure that they, if I can use the right, if I can say they reclaim their mandates according to them, but they are certainly going to explore all judicial opportunities out there for them to reclaim their mandates according to them.
Right, and meanwhile, of course, as they make that attempt to reclaim the mandate they say was taken from them, Abba Yusuf presumably remains as governor pending the outcome of that final appeal at the Supreme Court.
Yes, that's right, Charles. He remains the governor pending the outcome of the appeal at the Supreme Court. So what they are telling their supporters now is to just maintain calm. And recall, yesterday the Commissioner of Police in Kano State appealed to political parties to caution their supporters to maintain a high level of decorum before and after today's court verdict. And largely across Kano State and across the Northwest region, that's what we've seen, especially in Kano State. The supporters are calm and they're just waiting to hear from their political leaders. And like we rightly know, they are going to move to the Apex Court to reclaim their mandates, as they say. So it's a lot of legal battles still ahead for them until it gets to the Apex Court. Then we can get the final verdicts and we'll know if Yusuf of the New Nigeria People's Party, that's the NNPP, will remain as governor of Kano State, or Nasiru Gawuna of the APC will become the governor of Kaduna State. But like I earlier said, that will become a costly price for Kano State because they will now become part of the states in Nigeria that will fall into the off-cycle election. And many of them won't be pleased with that. I can tell you that for free, Charles.
Very interesting indeed. Nisi, thank you very much, and great to see you on air and to finally get to have a good chat with you. Look after yourself. Nisi Gabriel is the Arise correspondent that covers Nigeria's Northwest region, and he was talking to me there from Kaduna. Well, to help us explore the remaining angles to the story, I'm joined now in the studio by the policy strategist, political commentator, and group CEO of the global investment and trade company Baba Yusuf, who is from Kano State. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Pleasure to be here, Charles.
How much of a shock is this appeal court decision sacking Abba Yusuf and affirming Nasiru Gawuna as the governor of Kano State? I mean, bearing in mind that the tribunal had already made a decision in favor of Mr. Gawuna.
Well, to be honest, there's not much of a shock if you ask me as a person, but it's a shock to many in Kano State because of the high level of expectations and high level of, if you like, love for the NNPP by the adherents of the NNPP, and of course also the high level of love for the APC by the adherents of both parties. So there was high tension in terms of expectation. And then when the ruling came out today, family and friends, even as I was coming here, I was speaking to family. People are downcast while others are excited. The good thing is, just like your correspondent mentioned, very, very good positive outcome is the calmness of the situation. People are taking things in their strides, albeit they are not happy, believing that there's one line of action to take on the part of NNPP. And on the part of APC, there's a glimmer of hope that, look, we are now going to take over, leadership in Kano. If you come to me, there's not much of a surprise, because if you study the ruling of the tribunal, Charles, and you look at it vis-a-vis what the outcomes come at the appeal court, I will say this particular 2023 election, to my mind, is a case study. It's like a class, master class for politicians and for citizens. I will expect, more polished outcomes in 2027. Why am I saying so? The judiciary happens now to be the one declaring, results rather than INEC.
Right.
But then while that is happening, people are learning hard lessons. Now we have a situation like in Kano, a boundary between reason and logic. People that believe they have voted for a populist, platform, and believe rightly so in their own context they have won elections, are now coming to get a rude awakening, that actually there's an issue, fundamental. And for the governor of Kano State also to get, to know this as political actors, that just going through the mechanics of politicking and elections is not the issue. You have to also put your house in order and do your homework to win litigation, to win elections. Oversights and errors of commission and commission can be very, very costly. What am I saying? If you look at one of the key reasons, the breach of section 177 sub C of the Constitution, if I may read, says, I'll just go there and say he has to be a member of a political party.
Well, I was going to bring that up because the court suggested that Mr. Yusuf wasn't even qualified to run in the first place. I mean, what do you make of that suggestion that the governor was not a member of the NNPP when the election was held?
Now, that goes to that critical fundamental issue, which becomes an irony for the NNPP. Now we are speaking reality, not emotions, not sentiments. We are speaking law and reality.
Yes, of course.
And if I may complete, Section 177 sub C says, he, that is the candidate, okay, a person shall be qualified for election, then C says, if he is a member of a political party and that the party has to sponsor that candidate. Now, the outcome of the matter is, it goes further. If you listen to the judgment ruling today, and they said his name was not found, that is the governor, the appellant. His name was not found in 3 volumes of the membership register of the NNPP that were tendered before the court, Charles. His names were not there. His name was not there. Right? And then moving on, he went to say, if I may read again, that he, the appellant, as an appellant, did not depose to the affidavit that was front-loaded. You understand? He relied on an affidavit that was deposed by another person to prove that he is the bona fide member of the political party. Now, this is a costly mistake.
It's beyond a costly mistake. It sounds like complete and utter ineptitude.
Absolutely. Now, for the adherents that are out there, either no knowledge of the law or the facts before the court will seem to be, there's a procurement of judgment, there's injustice. If we want Nigeria to move forward, we need to be very practical and tell ourselves the honest truth so that moving forward, don't make these mistakes. Now, complacency for many political actors. The moment you win elections, you get laid back, you get complacent, and then your image, your vision becomes blurred. Now, these are fundamental. How could you, as an appellant, and I'm being emphatic now because there's a ruling at the tribunal stage, first court of instance, and now at the last court of instance, in this case, an appeal court, saying that the appellant relied on the affidavit deposed by another person. This is an enlightened, educated person. How did that happen? And then moving further to say in the entire document front-loaded.
And they had lawyers.
Now, I want to get back to this. I want to remind us, Charles, this is Section 177 sub C of the 1999 Constitution. So this is a constitutional requirement, not even an electoral act requirement. So even though one may say it's a pre-election matter, when I got the gist of the issue, I now said, wow, this is a fundamental issue. And it is on this premise, if you notice the total, the focal point of the judgment was no longer on the counting of the ballots, whether they were signed by INEC or not, but on this fundamental constitutional defect. Provision, the unavailability of the breach of this constitutional provision that the Court of Appeal heavily relied on, and they sort of indirectly reprimanded the appellant for such a mishap.
Well, I mean, it just sounds abysmal.
So I consider it a self-inflicted injury, Charles.
But it has to be, to be seen that way. But what I'm wondering is that, I mean, you, and pardon my presumptuousness, but you, I understand, have a lot of chums in the NNPP and so on. And quite a lot of them, I mean, we've had them here, are very well educated. I mean, what are they saying about this?
To be honest, I'm from Kano and I have friends across party lines, APC, NNPP. And to be honest, majority of the adherents of the NNPP are still living on that virtual reality of they won election, the elections were robbed of them.
Right.
But I have to tell my brothers and sisters the honest truth. I am not a member of the APC, neither am I a member of the NNPP. Of course, I have political antecedents, and as a Nigerian, I have my leanings. But in this particular matter, we are for the betterment of the polity, of the progress of Kano State and Nigeria. And I say, you know what? You need to speak to the issues. One, so that you face your reality, and guide your expectations, manage your expectations, and going forward as political actors, not just in the case of Kano. You see what happened in the case of the presidential elections and the outcomes. You see it all over. People will learn lessons and fine-tune their strategies moving forward. Because when we go further into the conversations, it may also not yet be uhuru for the APC, you know, for Excellency Nasiru Gawon when he becomes governor. Because peradventure, at the Supreme Court, he sails through. We can do scenario conversation, what if scenarios, if he goes through, or if NNPP is able to. This does not, by the way, shut down NNPC. They still have one layer of the apex court. I don't have the locus to declare that. But experience shows, precedent shows, the outcome of the presidential election, you know, at Supreme, we saw the outcome. And those should guide our thoughts and expectations with regard to how it plays out. However, the final decision remains with the court, apex court of the country, you know. But then there is still what I call game on after the Supreme Court elections. We may discuss that if you want.
Well, I mean, you put this very, very, very clearly and very interestingly. And I'm wondering, in the context of the analysis you've just given us, which is quite thorough, whether you think, because it just suggests political immaturity, certainly legal immaturity on the part of not just the NNPP, but a lot of the other parties that were ascendant in 2023. Does that suggest that the APC is more experienced in terms of these kinds of things? Because on the national level, the presidential election, I mean, they smoked everything all the way through. I mean, and then you come to core areas like, I mean, everybody automatically assigned Kano to the NNPP.
Absolutely.
So this is quite extraordinary in terms of the fact that such a fundamental, and as the word you used was costly, mistake took place. I mean, is it your sense that the APC has more experience in these things? Because I remember one of the legal advisors of the APC coming to sit where you were sitting when things were heading to the Supreme Court, and he just said, look, these people don't understand how the thing works. You know, we've filed all our papers correctly. Absolutely. We're going to get the best out of this, and these guys can go on social media or on television and bleat on about whatever it is they think they're going to achieve, but it's not going to get them anywhere.
I will answer that from two perspectives. And thank you very much, because it's a question that we all need to speak to, even after this program. Thank you. It's an agenda setting question. First of all, I need to, you know, tongue lash a little bit INEC, because they are principally killing the expectation of people. What am I saying? This fundamental defect could have been dealt with at that level of due diligence or process.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, to act either verify, confirm, and proceed, or otherwise. And you allow this matter to come to court, first layer, second layer, or third layer, as the case may be, to deal with an issue that has to do with your principal function as an electoral umpire. And this has been a recurring decimal of requirement of INEC to really deal with keeping their house in order, not, you know, allowing things like this to come up. That being said, of course, INEC is also not supposed to come and sit in the exam hall and write scripts for these principal players during their exam.
Absolutely.
You understand what I'm saying? But there is a lot of things, since you said about APC. Now, what APC has done, right from 2014, and people can take it or leave it, in strategy, recognizing your reality is the beginning of success, of charting the course to success, whatever it is, in business, in military warfare, whatever it is, in politics. And that is what APC has done. You know, the likes of the leadership of Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, while you are ranting on social media or you are being sentimental and emotional, people are looking at the details. Absolutely. Distilling the issues, speaking to the issues.
Very coldly, calculatingly practical.
And delivering, because you know what? Performance is measured by results, outcomes, not by, you know, events.
I mean, never mind the fact that, of course, allegations are swirling all over the place
and it's all
about improprieties.
Absolutely. But then again, if I am going to battle, I remember I wrote in a column October last year, if you go into battle with war-tested generals that have scars of wars over them, all over them, and you're going to war, you need to be prepared. And you don't need to take chances to say, hey, we're on high sea fighting the battle on the ship, and you remember you have a critical warfare armament you've left at home. This is classic example of the opposition parties. With due respect to them, you jumble them together. You hear narratives now after the fact. Opposition come and say, oh, you need to get together. Oh, hello. You just realize now you need to put this in context. You need to strategize. You need to expand your vision. You need to be detailed, focused, determined, and speaking to the issues. Politics is a game of numbers, and in law, that is why the icon of law is blind. You can't go to the court with sentiments. Now look at this fundamental issue. What would you like the judge to say?
Absolutely.
I was privileged to read the memoirs or interview of the Federal President Court of Appeal, His Honorable Justice Abdullah Omar, that was having conversations about outcomes of elections where they had to, give a declaration of a presidential election. And he said, yes, I am a brother. We grew up together with the former president in the same class, but I cannot just, dash him judgment.
Absolutely.
And then again, the lawyers. The choice of the lawyers by the appellants or the defendants, the litigants in this case, and also the decision to take matters by lawyers to choose cases is another issue with regards to professionalism and strategy in the kind of...
Well, very interesting analysis. But let me, because we've got like a couple of minutes left, you talked about that very important aspect of their costly mistake at the court. But there is also, I'm wondering how controversial the decision, which was also taken by the tribunal in September, declaring that more than 165,000 of Abba Yusuf's votes were invalid because the ballot papers were not signed or stamped by INEC. I mean, what happened there?
That goes back to what I was saying, berating INEC. Every step of the way of our litigation processes, it's like an appraisal issue for INEC, all the way. Strategy, operations, process, integrity, all the way. Technology. If you do an appraisal, there's an issue that are fundamental, that shouldn't happen. If you do a comparative analysis, the 2023 elections with 2015 elections, they are far apart.
Yeah, but that was INEC's fault, was it?
This is, of course,
because I remember the NNPP people complained about
it. If INEC didn't sign, and we have a court, I mean, people going to court to say they are invalidating this because INEC didn't sign. And INEC is actually joining a matter. First of all, how did you allow that to happen?
Yeah.
And then secondly, what do you have to say? Because I don't hear INEC saying anything with regards to these issues. We need to come with an explanation. Otherwise, in other climes, these are critical issues, not just for Mr. President, for everybody, with regards to the evolution of our political process going forward. You can't have the kind of money we appropriate for an election process.
And then have this level of this hopeless,
absolutely,
I mean, hopeless incompetence.
It's unacceptable. Yeah. And I feel that going forward, we should be able to eyeball these issues, deal with them so that they don't reoccur again. In the case of the NNPP adherents, they can now see clearly where the issues are and deal with them, and for the political gladiators also to see where they made strategic mistakes and correct them going forward.
Look, it's been brilliant talking with you.
Thank you very much.
Really very passionate analysis and very clear-eyed assessment from you. Baba Yusuf is a policy strategist, political commentator, and group CEO of the Global Investment and Trade Company, and he is from Kano State. Thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you, Charles.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again next week from me and the entire team here in Abuja and Kaduna and Lagos. Bye-bye, and thank you for watching.